Hi guys, and welcome back to Manch Talk. I feel like I have failed us all because I honestly had the earnest intention this morning to bring in the new file and do the new intro for The Independents, but I neglected to do that because I have 1,000,001 things going on. How is everyone doing back home? I hope your Wednesday so far is great. And if you're watching this on another day or online or on my website, carlagericke.com, it's probably a different day, but who cares? As long as we're all here communing together. Today we're going to be talking about a few things. First of all, I'd love to give you guys an update on the Free State Bitcoin Blockchain Digital Asset Conference that took place this weekend at the Wentworth-by-the-Sea in technically Newcastle, but I say Portsmouth or Rye. Bitcoin Jesus is out of his eternal 103-year sentence. He had to pay the federal government a $50 million fine, but at least Roger Ver is now free. Talk a little bit about some of the right to know things coming up, including that Kelly Ayotte seems to be keen to start to digitize some government functions, and that seems pretty exciting. And then last but not least, I do want to talk about abstinence, and abstinence specifically as it came up for me this weekend, living an alcohol-free life. But I think there are lessons that can be learned there, regardless of, pick your poison. Which one is it? Is it booze? Is it candy? Is it chocolate? Is it cupcakes? Is it heroin? Is it crack? Whatever that thing is, those things we crave, the question becomes, are there different ways we can approach this issue? And maybe self-control in life is the little key to hack a better life and a better future for yourself. So, all right, let's start with Roger Ver. For folks who don't know, he was known as Bitcoin Jesus, and he began investing in Bitcoin way back. In fact, maybe I'll make this a mixed-in narrative here between the Bitcoin conference this weekend and Roger. I was struck this weekend at FSB-DAC by how many people told the story, their sort of origin story of coming to Bitcoin, right? And how strongly the Free State Project, the events that I worked on personally, Liberty Forum and PorcFest, to bring guests like Bitcoin Jesus, Roger Ver, Charlie Shrem, Eric Voorhees, and the likes here to New Hampshire back in 2011 and in 2012. And so at FSB-DAC, there were numerous people who were talking about how being exposed to those ideas back then not only made them obscenely wealthy, I'm not one of those, sadly, but and to see those people actually giving back to the community, but also how those ideas were embraced here in New Hampshire under the Liberty community because we understand monetary policy. We understand that endlessly printing money leads to inflation. Inflation leads to your eggs being too expensive. Your eggs being too expensive leads to you becoming poorer over time. So now we're in the cycle where people are struggling instead of living or moving into a direction of abundance. And so basically what I'm saying is, I don't know, if you'd listened to me back in 2012, maybe your life would be on track as well. I'm speaking to myself. I throw myself in that category. And the reason I think I'm mentioning that is it occurred to me that as a person, I have always been kind of ahead of the trends a little bit. And so I was like, well, what are the trends or what am I interested in today that, is maybe a teachable moment or something I can pass on? And this notion of self-control, of abstinence, of actually mindfully living consciously, awarely your life and becoming the true pilot of your existence is, I think, where my value proposition is going to come from. All right, so Roger denounced his American citizenship back in, I want to say it was like 2014, yeah. And then hired a law firm and basically told them, hey, make sure everything we do is legal. And the law firm said, okay, dude, you got to pay X amount in taxes to denounce your American citizenship. He paid it, he moved on. And then lo and behold, many, many, many moons later, the IRS was like, yo, hey, I want your cap gains on those Bitcoin that have skyrocketed over time, right? And so they basically said, you owe another 48 million bucks. And the IRS's investigative tactics were extremely uncivil, meaning also not within the realms of the law, including the IRS with guns actually raiding his lawyers' offices, which regardless if you're pro this or pro that or whatever, everyone should be upset about, right? And so he was indicted in February 2024, and he was facing 109 years if you stack up cumulatively all the charges, unless he paid this extortion ransom for so-called tax evasion. So his, lawyers probably, I mean, I might have said this too, if you have the means, just pay the fine, pay the penalty, pay the extortion, and move on with your life. Because oftentimes when you're in these situations, it can actually like steal your life force, right? So you have to decide what you're gonna fight, what you're gonna, try and change in life. And I think Roger has a lot to give the world, and probably having this looming over him, even if, exile in Mallorca was probably not the worst prison sentence in the world. But I'm glad he's free. I'm sad he had to pay the extortion fees, but I understand that. And basically it's a deferred prosecution agreement, which he entered into on the 14th of October. And basically that says he has to it's admitting willful failure, so they're putting intent on it, to report some Bitcoin holdings and related misconduct. He paid about $50 million in fines, so that was about $37 million in back taxes and $12 million in penalties. And under the agreement, assuming he's a good boy for the next year, all the charges will be dropped. Charges will be dismissed in 1 year if he complies. So, I get it. I'm glad. The next one on the list, of course, is freeing Ian Freeman, who's in prison here in Connecticut. He's served almost 2 years now, but he's facing another 6 at least, regarding being charged with money transmitting. He was sentenced as a scammer for a romance scam, which was entirely not in line with the actual charges. And so hopefully we can start to really get a handle on Ian Freeman's story, communicate it correctly, help people understand it was a miscarriage of justice that took place actually under Biden's choke point, which was a directed attack on crypto pioneers, on Bitcoin pioneers, and Ian got caught up in that. So maybe we can get his sentence reduced, but at least get some of the public to understand the miscarriage of justice there as well. It's basically these actions by the Department of Justice are supposed to create a chilling effect, which indeed it does, thereby silencing other people. And why do they want to silence crypto people? Maybe less now, because Bitcoin is really being sort of hijacked by big corporations and being used as a hedge against the dollar collapse now. But be that as it may, the true beauty of Bitcoin is in its mission as described in the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. And the idea was that this was a way to break the fiat currency cartel, which is impoverishing everyone except those who benefit from us. And if you think your eggs are expensive, you're not benefiting from it. All right, now I want to shift gears for a second to talk about abstinence, and I'm going to start with the FSB conference. So the conference was amazing. It was on Sunday at the Wentworth-by-the-Sea. Beautiful old choice New Hampshire resort, the red roofs, the beautiful white verandas, the Adirondack chairs, you know, kind of on the porch there, fireplaces, just a really, really beautiful location, beautiful time of year, and I'm very deeply grateful to Bruce and Carol Ann Fenton for hosting the entire event and making it free for everyone. So truly a gift to the Bitcoin blockchain community. Some great speakers, and we had a speakers dinner the night before, and this is what made me think about talking about alcohol-free living again and sort of abstinence and what our role is in our own lives to embrace and enhance our own health. So the speakers dinner was kind of like, you know, one of those conference rooms at the end of a long corridor. And as I was talking to one of the speakers, I could tell he was antsy, and he kept asking me where the bar was, or when the bar was opening in this, you know, conference room or in this dinner room. And I know that the Fentons don't serve alcohol at their events. That's a choice they made some years ago. And so I said, oh, you're probably going to have to walk back to the bar. And of course he did. And everything in his energy would have been me 10 years ago before I quit drinking. I quit in December 2017. And so I recognized myself in his sort of anxiousness to get lit, right? And this is no judgment on him. Everyone makes their own choices in life. And I'm fine with people's personal choices. But here is the God's honest truth. If we are going to socialize the cost of medicine, then we should all care how everyone is treating their own bodies. Because if you're making bad decisions that I have to pay for, now we have a beef. So there are two solutions to this problem. Either we're going to end up in a like medical technocracy, which I think is kind of leading that way, sadly, or we have to acknowledge that I am not responsible for your decisions, and I should not, as a taxpayer, have to subsidize someone else's medical expenses. And that is a hard one. That is how America used to work even 25, 30 years ago, but we have moved very far away from that, and we are in a decline of human health. So what's the hack I figured out for my own decisions to try and age gracefully, to embrace as much health as I can, and quitting alcohol because it is a neurotoxin that will rot your brain, and there are no safe levels of alcohol consumption. Sorry, I know you don't want to hear it, but it's true. So I wrote this essay, and I'm actually going to read it in its entirety, and then we can maybe break into littler pieces of it. I timed it at home, and it takes about 5 minutes, so I think we should have enough time. All right, guys, here we go. There is no money in self-control, and that's why they hate it. In a world addicted to yes, abstinence is treason. There's no money in self-control. That's why they hate it. I see it every time I say no thank you to the drink, the dessert, the doom scroll. People flinch like a flicker, like I've torn a hole in their consensus reality. Oh, come on, live a little. But what they mean is, Don't make me look at my chains. My refusal becomes a mirror. If I can choose differently, what does that make there just one more? The ancient virtue, the modern vice. Once upon a time, self-control was civilization's crown jewel. The Greeks called it sophrosyne, temperance, soundness of mind, harmony of soul. The Stoics called it freedom, mastery of the passions. The Buddhists called it liberation, the middle way beyond craving. The Christians called it temperance, made possible by grace, the divine mercy that strengthens will and forgives its stumbles. Abstinence was never about denial. It was about dominion. Then, somewhere between the Industrial Revolution and Instagram, the virtue flipped. Self-control became about repression. Desire became authenticity. Moderation became the designer drug of a system that runs on addiction. The business model of weakness. Every billboard, feed, and algorithm conspires to make you want. Every ad is a micro assault on sovereignty. It whispers, "You are lacking," then sells you the fix. A hungry soul is a loyal customer. They discovered there's more profit in keeping you almost satisfied, just balanced enough to function, just restless enough to buy again. The sweet spot between craving and guilt. Moderation became the lubricant of consumption. Treat yourself. Mindful indulgence. Balance, not extremes. Translation, keep nibbling at the bait. The modern economy doesn't sell products. It sells loops. Dopamine subscriptions dressed as lifestyle. The psychology of control versus identity. They tell you willpower is the key, but willpower is a finite battery. Every temptation drains it. The real hack is identity, the categorical self. It's not that I don't drink. It's that I'm a person who doesn't. The decision was made upstream, so I don't have to negotiate downstream. They call that rigidity. I call it firmware security. Each not for me frees up psychic RAM. The mind sharpens, the noise quiets, the machine stalls. The rebranding of moderation. All things in moderation, they chant as though it was scripture, except poison, except lies, except the things that keep you enslaved. Moderation is the devil's compromise. Enough rope to hang yourself slowly while feeling morally superior for pacing the noose. They call you an extremist for choosing purity in a polluted age. Fine. Be extreme in your clarity. Be radical in your refusal. The system survives on your micro yeses. One clean no can break the algorithm. Abstinence as rebellion. When you abstain, you exit the market. You become economically useless. They can't predict you, they can't program you, and they can't sell you. You no longer feed the machine that feeds on your longing. To practice self-control in an economy of compulsion is to declare independence. It is to say, my peace cannot be monetized. It is to reclaim the throne of your own mind. My closing invocation, the quiet revolution. They will call you boring, puritanical, joyless. Let them. Joy is not the sugar rush of purchase. It is the stillness when craving dies. They hate you because your peace cannot be monetized. They can't sell to a sovereign soul. In a world engineered for craving, self-mastery is the revolution. So, very proud of that, by the way. I thought that was one of the better things I've done in a while. So my point here is literally that we are told, and honestly, I think it was my favorite thing, my dad's favorite thing to say when I was young, all things in moderation. And then you start, and that seems okay, and then you start to crave things that are poisonous to you. And I would like everyone to maybe take a moment, maybe today when you're reflecting, maybe when you're writing in your journal, when you're considering what you're grateful for, spend some time and ask yourself, what are the things you crave, right? And then be mindful about whether those things are serving you or whether that is where perhaps your attention should be focused to make changes. So I knew alcohol was not serving me anymore. It was taking up, honestly, just too much mind space because of the ruminations and the loops and the negotiation. So if you find yourself in brain loops where you're constantly renegotiating with yourself because you told yourself one thing, and then later that day or maybe the next week or whatever, you do the exact opposite, well, then you're not keeping your word to yourself. And that is why you're having these spirals. So our jobs as flawed humans, and we are all flawed and no one is perfect, and that is part of the game too, is understanding and accepting that, but recognizing the faults and then choosing to do something about it instead of just accepting these things as our lot. So there's a lot of personal work, of course, that needs to happen, but I think it's really important for people to start to embrace the word no as a way of coming to more personal sovereignty, to more self-ownership, and to a better life. And it might start with just sometimes there's stuff in your extra hours that you just don't want to do. Just say no and don't over-explain it and see what happens. And then reflect on it also, right? This is an iterative process. You're trying to get to know yourself better. I did do a really, I thought, good piece on not this essay. This essay came out of whatever I was mumbling yesterday on my MLX, on X, and sometimes on Facebook. What is my MLX? That is my living experiment. That is for 288 days today. I've jumped on X to do an X Live to tell people about my life here in the Free State and sort of the wisdoms and things and teachings that I've learned in life. All right, with our last few minutes, let's talk right to know. The right to know seems like it's going to be a little bit of a hot topic, I think, this legislative session. Primarily, I noticed that Kelly Ayotte, our governor, is tweeting out about the digitization of the governor's office and the executive council. And the way it was framed is that There are so many documents for those two departments or those two offices that the documents, when stacked up, are 3.5 times the height of the State House. Now, of course, that's just like a cute little way to help you understand, oh, that's a lot of paper. Wouldn't it be great if we digitize it? In her tweet, she also said that this would make government more transparent and accessible. And so I immediately asked, does that mean this database will be accessible to the public and that it would not require a 91A? I got crickets on that. So I think we're going to have to keep our eye on this because, one, the corner office, the governor's office, claims executive privilege and says they are above the New Hampshire Constitution, which says all government departments and agencies should be transparent, accountable, accessible to the people. And of course, that should include the governor's office, but long ago they laid claim to executive privilege, and they say that anything done there is not subject to our 91A laws. The Executive Council, as far as I know, is subject to it. So if we start to digitize the government, which I'm for, I am very keen that we just actually put cameras in everything that is government related and just upload it to the cloud and just create a record. If we're going to have a public life and they're going to tax us and take all our money, which is what they're doing with the monetary policy, then we should be able to record them and see what's going on and hold them accountable to the extent we can. I will leave you on a bleak note because I do see we're running out of time. I actually asked one of the LLMs this week, I was having a debate about something anti-government, as I do, and I said, well, give me an example of where there has been actual reform in the government. And I gotta tell you, the track record, not good, guys, not good. So part of the shell game of government is they pretend to hear you, they pretend to do different things, but ultimately the one thing that does happen is government grows and it benefits the elites. All right, that is what I have for this week's Manch Talk. Maybe next week I'll come in with my new intro. I appreciate everyone's time. You can always reach me at carla@carlagericke.com. You can find all my content on my website, carlagericke.com, The Art of Independence, and I can't wait to see everyone back here again next week.